Okay.
Oh, Marie, I am so excited, so excited to have this conversation with you because when I heard you speaking on Charlie Ward's program, I absolutely knew that I had the potential here to enter into an incredible relationship with somebody who I felt like I could utilize my Course in Miracles knowledge and just the knowledge of the teachings that I've been doing for 14 years, the information Jesus has given me to be able to talk to somebody that we can speak a language that might have the ACIM in common and figure out how we can navigate what we're in the middle of utilizing A Course in Miracles. So I just felt that kinship to you the minute that I heard you speak. So thank you for doing this conversation with me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation too. I mean, we're definitely in this together, and I love A Course in Miracles. I have had such incredible transformation through this material. And you said 14 years, and I'm at 15 years of being through the workbook every year. I mean, some years it takes me a little bit longer, so I can't say I've been through it 15 times. I'm more around, I would say maybe 10, 12 times that I've moved all the way through the workbook and read the text at least twice. All the way through from the beginning to the end, and all of the manual for teachers. And now, running courses, we have a project called the Trust Project that is all about the qualities of God's teachers, the characteristics of God's teachers. So moving through trust and honesty and tolerance, and doing like presentations on this work, and really inviting all of us to embody our innate and divine nature. And so to find another kindred soul that has also resonated with this material at this level, in terms of just like having a long-term relationship, like this is pretty much a long-term relationship, we could say, with this material. And it never gets old. It just keeps getting deeper and more true. That's like this morning, I was like, wow, this is so relevant and so true for this very present moment. I think that's what keeps me coming back for more, and just bowing in gratitude for the material itself, just how it's articulated this current moment in time.
I love hearing what you're saying. I totally get it. My journey began with Jesus 14 years ago when I started my spiritual journey, and I began to receive guidance. And I that was so foreign to me because I grew up Catholic, but I didn't practice any of that. And I began to feel this call to connect with Jesus. Excuse me. And I went to do a reading, and the reader said to me, Jesus is trying to get a hold of you. And I was like, what? No way. I don't even have a relationship with Jesus. I go to church. I do all those things. I'm Christian. But what would Jesus want with me? And I walked out of that reading, and I bumped into a case that had books. She was doing her readings in a bookstore, a metaphysical bookstore, Phoenix and Dragon here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I kind of bumped it, which I don't know why, because there's hardly anybody there, but I bumped into this bookcase, and a book came out called The Gospel of Thomas according to, or The Gospel of Jesus according to Thomas. And I was so absolutely moved, and I began to read that book, and it transformed my life. And this is almost 14 years ago. And I was given this workshop called The Power of Awareness to teach. I began teaching it right away. And I mean, it was just like one of those, we hear the word download. And people would ask me if this course was based on A Course in Miracles. And I would tell them, I didn't even know what A Course in Miracles is. This was so early in my journey. And it was teaching me about the distinction of the voices between love and fear, God's voice and the ego's voice. And I began to do that work on me. And then in 2011, December 2011, I was told it's time for you to read The Disappearance of the Universe, which is about the Course in Miracles. And then immediately I knew I would have to read the Course in Miracles. And my experience with the Course in Miracles, I read it cover to cover in 2 weeks. I I canceled everything in my life and I just sat and read cover to cover. I felt like I was going through just another awakening as I was reading the book. And like you said, I've been teaching it since. I've gone through it many times. This is my fourth year doing a long-term classes on it, 8 years of doing individual things about it. Marie, I have never found anything, no spiritual book, and I've probably read close to 1,000 or teachers that I've listened to, that continues to stretch me, that continues to pull me into more of the undoing that is the block to the presence of the awareness of God in me. So when I heard you talking, I was like, oh my gosh, with everything that's happening in the world, the Course in Miracles is what I've been using with my students now. Since the 2016 election, we've been using the Course in Miracles to understand what's happening. And it is absolutely amazing how, as I read whatever shows up for me that day, it is helping me to better understand the magnitude of the illusion that we have projected that has completely destroyed our ability. Well, I shouldn't say destroy is not the right word, but has completely made very difficult our ability to connect to God.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Share, what are some of the things that you are experiencing about what's happening today that makes the Course so relevant for you? Because I'm super curious.
Well, thank you for all of that. It's so fascinating, how this material grabs some of us and it just literally shakes us upside down. And, I know I want to get to the Marianne conversation, but I learned a lot from her and listening to her lectures. And one of the things that she says often is that if it's your book, you know it. And so that's a great line, because I just knew it was my book. And, as it relates to current events, one of the things that really opened me up is, and it continues to from the Course in Miracles, is the willingness to see this differently.
Yeah.
That we need to have a willingness to see things differently. And when I first started reading the Course, I was really insulted a lot. I was very insulted. I was like, well, I don't think this, that it's so authoritative. Like the language is it's so clear, it's so direct, it's so truth, that if you're not in the truth, you will be offended by it. And the ego is going to attach and not want you to read and not want you to contemplate or study or listen to.
Or more, sorry to interrupt you, my ego made me argue with what was in the Course. Talk about arrogance.
Yeah. Well, it's, that's what the ego does, is looking for any shred of guilt in anything in you and your brother or anyone else. But this line of seeing things differently really has been essential and was a grounding force for me as I went through, what we were calling the rabbit hole, and to even contemplate the idea that the president of the United States might actually be on the right side of things. So I took my course curriculum and thought, well, okay, I'm willing to see this differently. I will listen to what these other humans are saying about current events, because it came from a willingness. I needed to see things differently. It was like the world was so dark, the world of illusions that we know is not real. We know only love is real. We know this. However, there's layers here to this. And so it was like, in the reality I was living in, God, did fear feel real? Fear of the virus, fear of my family, fear of what's going to happen to my children, fear of the finances. And everyone on this planet has felt that. So for me, the Course gave me a window, an insight to, if you're willing to see this differently, you will. And I'll tell you what, that's been a guiding force in my reality since the beginning. But with this stuff, it was huge, because what I find is that so many people are unwilling to see it differently. And that's the issue we're having.
Yeah, oh my goodness, you summed it up right there. The unwillingness is what has made me very clear in my journey and all these years of working with so many other people. that is where I see the distinction of those who are going to enter the journey towards inner peace and those who stay on the periphery wanting peace. And it is that inability to be willing to be open-minded, to be the inability to say, maybe I don't know what I don't know. And that desire to see things differently is to me the hallmark of one who is actually going to come to know what is possible when we align with truth. And to me, I am very clear. The Course in Miracles is speaking truth unlike anything that I've ever seen, but it's also I've read and I've heard the same thing through various channels. I mean, it was in the Bhagavad Gita when I read that 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. This beautiful teaching shows up on the world, and it's consistent with the essence of the teachings of Jesus, the human Jesus that was on the planet 2,000 years ago. And if there's not a willingness to put your I know mind aside, it's impossible. It's impossible. I see people get stopped there. And what happens when people get stopped and they're unwilling to see things differently? Again, because I did it. I know it in myself. This is why I'm so passionate about these teachings, because I live them and I continue to learn from them. So I'm continuing to live into more truth. But that unwillingness makes us so judgmental of the other that we don't realize that because all judgments are learned, they're not part of our innate essence. Because all judgment is learned, those who judge others don't realize that their minds are being manipulated by information that they receive from the outer world, even though there's no outer, but the experience of outer, media, the mother, father, teacher, preacher, everything external. If we're not willing to question what we know, we don't see that we're swayed by externals, and it's the illusion of swayed by external information that keeps us from coming internal into where God resides. And it's such a freaking mind blow, being able to see that. And anyways, it's that, thank you for saying that willingness is just powerful.
Huge. And what people run into initially when we start to go inward is a fear that those layers upon layers upon layers of illusion that have been laid upon us, since the beginning of time, since the fall of Adam. I mean, my son's name is Adam, so I'm very, very much into the positive aspect of our humanity and who we were designed to be as the children of Father Sky, Divine Mother Earth. However you frame it, it doesn't so much matter. Just knowing your innate holiness is that grounding force that allows you to go through those layers of fear. Because what you find, and what I found, was that as I started to listen to the Holy Spirit within my consciousness, it told me something exactly opposite from what I was thinking and believing. And this, again, is another core Course principle, is that the world that we live in is 180 degrees opposite the reality of love. And so this time is incredible to be aware of what's happening, because we've been doing this. We've been moving from the world of illusions to the world of reality where only love exists. So heaven on earth. So it says in the Course, right, that there's never been a great awakening.
Yeah.
It says that Adam fell asleep, but it has yet to say that he has awoken. And this is what this material is teaching us, how to wake up to the spirit within and listen to the spirit within more than anybody else, anything else, any other external reality. That's what you're saying too, that when you go inward, you go, oh, Christ, literally, greetings.
Yeah.
Well, hello, Christ within, namaste. Wonderful to see you. Wow, isn't it beautiful to be in your presence? Thank you for being here with me today. It gets to that level where you're literally like, you just want that relationship above all else. Because when that relationship is grounded and founded in love and unity, when you are united to the Christ within you, anyone can say anything to you and you'll know. You'll know whether this is true or untrue, and you will trust your brothers who are one with you. So this is a very important practice, and I want to make this point right here, that we don't want to be in relationship with people's egos. We want to be in relationship to the Christ within all beings. Now, that's a difficult task these days. However,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily difficult as the Course teaches us. It's different. So when I am presented with, like my behaviors now, like I can still feel the tug of shame that
Mhm.
others say, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should not be speaking like this. You should be quiet on this. It's there. It's a little bit lingering, but thank goodness, because before it was my reality.
Yeah.
It was, I should not speak. I've been trained to be, a sweet young woman and to keep my mouth shut and just listen to what everybody else tells me to be true. But the Course, my goodness, did that say the opposite? It said, no,
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
inside out what's true. And the work now is trying to see that in others when
Yeah.
they're blocked and they don't
Yeah.
even know it because they're so attached to it. And it's so, what will I be without my thought systems?
Yeah.
Who will I be without? And I'm telling you, and you already know this, but anyone who hears this, you will be yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And I can tell you, guilt, shame, those are not part of my reality anymore. When my son, my youngest child, I've got three, he's 24 now, but when he was 14, he entered what we call his 4-year drug adventure. And as he was going through that drug adventure, um, I was still very new in my journey, and I was 7, maybe 8 years into it, still very, very early on in my journey. Yes, I was teaching the power of awareness, and I was understanding the distinction between the voices, and I did have Jesus guiding me, the consciousness that to me felt like Jesus. And when Spencer started doing drugs, and I began to feel all of those human egoic judgments. What are people going to think about me? What if people find out? And oh my gosh, I've got to control my child. He's going to make me look bad. And as things progressed and he went deeper and more adventurous into very dangerous drugs and alcohol and partying, I was hearing the voice telling me, do not be concerned about doing intervention. Everybody was telling me, we got to do an intervention. We got to do a drug intervention, a alcohol intervention. I was being told, and it was so distinct, you are doing a soul intervention. Your job is to remind him of the essence that he is, and it's eternal. Do not focus on his body. If he dies, he dies. He does not belong to you. And I'm listening to Jesus
Wow.
saying this to
Like I
me.
just got full
And
body chills.
well, and I've got my ego on the other side going, what do you mean if he dies, he dies? And all of the fears that were running through my mind as I was doing it totally, completely dealing with him in a different way. I completely lost my guilt and my shame through that process, because what I found, Marie, and I know you have felt this, is when you ground yourself in Jesus' God's guide, whatever you want to call it, in the guidance that is moving you with unconditional love for anybody. And that's where I had to first really learn unconditional. I thought I loved my kids unconditionally, but I didn't. They needed to make me look good. There was a lot of conditions. I needed to be, the perfect mom and most important person in their lives, and all of that nonsense that the world had taught me to do, my parents taught me to do. But when I began to feel unconditional love, what it felt like was an honoring of a soul that is eternal here on the planet playing a role. That's it. And his role was to become a drug addict that was going to teach his mother about unconditional love. And I, in that moment, realized, well, what is there to be guilty about when you realize that we are here? It's a movement of energy doing a dance for a very specific reason. It's experience. That's all it is experience. Not good, not bad. It's just experience. Can I experience this with peace and love in my heart, respect, and in all of those characteristics of a teacher of God is what began to be the things that Jesus had me focus on. Can I be defenseless? Can I be gentle? Can I be patient? Can I trust? Can I be honest? And so the letting go of guilt and shame, that is absolutely doable because I experience that. What I am still obviously growing in lots of other areas is moving through my certainty that I am under no laws but God's. That's my work now. So this year is my year of 2021. My theme and my teachings are going to be centered about being in the world but not of it. And it's a big task.
It's a big task, but I'll tell you, just like, you're saying to me, letting go of shame and blame is absolutely possible, which I so agree with, and I've so experienced in many aspects of my living. But it is absolutely appropriate and essential for us to know that we are in the world but not of the world, and it's absolutely possible. And I think that I'm starting to actually experience this on deeper and deeper levels. I've always been on the fringe of society. I've always questioned organized society. I never really fit in. I was always, they call me the black sheep, but I call myself the white sheep. Like I've always been like, wait a second here, what about unconditional love? Like when I had a relationship with my yoga teacher, he was 30 years my senior, and he was Jewish. And, I came from a very, you shared with me at one point that you grew up in a Catholic environment. I grew up in an Orthodox Christian environment. So there's a dogma here. There's a doctrine we must follow. And if we do not, there is a lot of like trying to pull you back in, and shame and guilt and all of that. So I've always been like, wait a second, this just doesn't resonate with me. Like I feel different. I feel God inside me. I know the difference between love and unconditional love. And when my whole family and community was really upset about my relationship, I kept calling it out. Like, wait a second, I thought we practiced unconditional love here. But, so many people are like, well, that's not the world we live in. You've got to you're making us look bad. And so all of those old programs, it wasn't necessarily them. And I think that that's what both of us are trying to say. Like beyond your son's addiction was the truth, was the light, was the sinlessness of his essence. And that's what we are holding the space for always, because everyone in our life is an assignment. Every event, every situation, this is the course curriculum, right?
Yeah.
The universe is programmed for your enlightenment. It wants that more than anything.
Yeah.
That is its goal. Forgiveness is the key to happiness, right? So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is letting go of the judgments. Of this is good and this is bad. It is what it is. All events are neutral. I live in this world, but the tax man and the vaccine and the this and the that, it doesn't faze me at this point, because and it's not an arrogance that we receive, it's a faith.
Yeah, exactly.
Faith.
Thank you for saying that, because I want to make certain, and I could sense this from you, because there's just such a kindness that comes from you that you emanate. And I recognize there are so many people right now that are feeling incredible terror. And to hear somebody talk about, yes, you can live fearlessly and you can live without guilt or shame, that sounds like we're in denial of what's happening, but it's the total complete opposite. It is the acceptance of what's happening, but looking at it from an unconditionally loving perspective, looking at it to understand how is it that we have become so totally and completely detached from the peaceful side inside of us. I mean, when I go back to Jesus, growing up Catholic, I really grew up confused, because my mom was atheist, and her family and my dad's family, they were the Catholic ones. So I would hear all this wonderful stuff about Jesus on the one hand, and my mom would say, it's all made up, don't believe any of it. So I was like, oh my gosh, who am I going to be loyal to? But in the teachings that I remember as a child, there were a couple of things that stood out, besides that you're a sinner. That had to do a lot of work through that. Talk about guilt and shame, working through that. Because I was definitely a sinner according to the Catholic Church. But the thing that most stood out was that the kingdom of heaven is within. It's within. And I was like, if they tell us it's within, why do they keep putting God on a cloud? Wait, the kingdom of heaven is within, and I and the Father are one, and so are you. When I began to study the Gnostic Gospels and all the other Gospels that have surfaced since, they got banned by the Catholic Church when they created it. I began to realize, well, if I just focus on those two things, I and God are one, must be, because the kingdom is in me. So if God is in me, then I have got to be one with it. And logic began to take over to unravel, then how come I am not living from that space?
Wow.
And all I discovered was we have been conditioned from pretty much from the get-go. That whole story about Adam and Eve eating of the tree of knowledge, good and evil, and we began to divide the world. We began to split our mind into right and wrong and judgments and good and bad. Our mind has for thousands of years been conditioned into perceiving things incorrectly. And incorrectly only to what is correct, which is the way God perceives the world. And I decided, what, God created everything. I'm going to align with God, because the ego hasn't created a damn thing except made a whole lot of messes. So I made the decision very early on in this journey, around 2007, I'm going to align with what God knows is true. And then I had this experience with that source that will make me cry, because it always activates the feeling. And I felt God in me. And from that moment on, I knew that's the only thing I ever want to live into. All of my learnings are so that I can live into the embodiment of what I felt is my truth. And it is pure, if I had to describe love, it is pure acceptance of everything with no interpretation, nothing in the mind, just accept it. And that, to me, is what I have realized is what you and I are the ones that are, and obviously so many like us, are allowing ourselves to experience in the midst of the chaos and the division. Is I really accept everybody where they are. If you want to vote for Biden, that's okay. If you want the vaccine, that's okay. If you want to wear a mask, that's okay. And that acceptance allows me to hear more guidance that keeps taking me deeper into greater understandings of how I can be in service on this planet.
Beautiful. Wow, there was so much there I want to attend to also. Just really beautiful. I think, well, landing in service is fantastic, because a lot of people will say to you, well, again, as they're waking up to their fears and their concerns, or, well, how do you live in the world without fear and guilt and peace? And you're of service. You see it from a higher place. And it's not that others aren't seeing it from a higher place, but kind of is, guys. Like, if you can ascend yourself to a certain level of knowing that only love is real, and know that you are created, you're created. You didn't create yourself. So you must align, like you said, to the energy that created you, which is love, which is God. God knows that all of this is insanity already. So God knows, like, oh, look at all these people, like, look at all this craziness. Now, there's only so far out of bounds we can go, which I believe we are there. And that's what the Course has taught me too, where we are so far out of bounds with the way that we treat each other, the way that, primarily the way that we attend to our children. Enough said in this present moment, but so now we have literal God intervention happening, because we are the plan for God. God's salvation for the earth is for us, is the awakening of each and every one of us to know that God is inside us, God loves us, and to sit in that seat of wisdom, no matter what presents itself in front of us, is the work that we do full time. There is no time off from that. And that's a joy. That's where joy comes from. That's where bliss comes from. That's where faith and open-mindedness comes from, where you can see it all. You're in the world. I'm here. I can see it all happening around me. My work is to not get plugged into it, not to be judgmental of the people wearing a mask in their car by themselves. My egoic mind wants to jump all over that, but like, all right, and then again, it's like, I see the sinless in you, brother. I know that you're suffering. I've been there.
Exactly.
I know what that feels like. But again, if I'm the plan, and it's what I love about the course curriculum is that it's so much about accepting myself and my worthiness, because I am created in the image and likeness of God. So why should I not be God? I am just a spark of that. You know, Santos had a beautiful statement in our talk, and he said, you know, the quantity of my godliness, it is limited, you know, like I am a drop in the ocean, but the quality of my essence is not diminished because I am a human being. So
Yeah.
it's like I have this spark of light within me. We call it Christ, the Christ within, the love within. You know, people even still have issues with that word. Why? Well, because we grew up with the inverted understanding of what that word is. But when you understand that Christ is simply that spark of light within you because you are created and not the creator, and that everything that we have actually created has been a miscreation because it's
Yeah.
been created out of fear and lower level thinking of I'm not good enough, I need to compete, what am I going to do? How am I going to support my family? I can say to you, the more I allow myself to be absorbed into the graciousness that is God, the more the miracles occur naturally as expressions of love, as we know. But literally, like now, it used to be I had to work a little bit. Now it's like I think it and it happens. It's that level of alignment. Like I think I need, you know, I need to upgrade my community. And within a week of this call with Charlie Freak and Santos and Colleen and all that beautiful community, I mean, people like you showed into my life and said, hey, I'm a Course in Miracles too. And I know what it's like to be, you know, attacked literally, right, by this. But the only thing that can attack me, the Christ in me cannot be crucified. The only thing that can attack me are my egoic thoughts. And if I'm detached from those and I know that they're an illusion and that's not my true essence, it's only my dime mind, then literally I'm unstoppable. And again, the Christ in me cannot be crucified. So I'm really holding to that. And that has allowed me to embody more and more levels of this thing in the midst of like, yeah, okay, Biden 2020. Like when people, that's what's difficult, but at the same time inspiring for me and tells me I'm on the right track, is that when I see something that I disagree with, I just allow it. I accept it, you know, and if someone wants to, you know, have a conversation about that, I'm open, but the respect and the generosity and the peacefulness needs to be an operating instruction. If it's not there, there's no reason to communicate, because again, I'm not interested in being in a relationship with your ego. I'm just not. So, you know what I mean? So then it's
I
like,
get it.
I go, okay, fine. That's where you're at. I'm not going to come all over your page and tell you how crazy you are and how you need psychological support. And, you know, you've lost your mind, you know, that's attack. But when this is what's happening, is that if you post anything in positivity towards the truth of what's happening on this planet, the extraordinary awakening of humanity, the extraordinary kindness that's coming from the top down, finally, that these are rules. We do not traffic. These are the rules. We don't do that. We're mankind. We're not going to do that anymore. So you can say he's this and he's that, and everybody knows who I'm talking about. You know, you can say all of that stuff, but the facts are here. And people like you and me, using our spiritual awareness and our spiritual gifts and our spiritual grounding, are saying, look, guys, let's see this differently. Let's acknowledge the light in each other. And I was saying this before I was convinced that he was on the right side of things, simply because I could see the energy and the hatred around it getting to a level of just kind of, this just is really kind of insane. Okay, yes, we need to speak out against bigotry and racism and stuff like that. But when you become a bigot and a racist, that's kind of defeating the purpose at this point. So let us step back from that. Let us just extend love. Let us trust that there is a spark of light in this man that is leading us towards, you know, a more humane existence on this beautiful planet that we live in. But you know, that's really what it comes down to. Are you willing to see it differently? And that is your get out of jail free card, because the other narrative is so dark. And it's not worthy of you, beautiful human watching this right now. You are worthy of greatness. You're worthy of having a life where you don't worry about money. You don't worry about your reputation. You're not competing with your brothers and sisters. Like, this is where we're going.
and your well-being, your health, so many, your freedom, your ability to move about and choose your how you treat your body and all of those things. Something you had mentioned about the you said it and now it just escaped me.
It's 11:11.
That
Yay.
Oh, how cool is that? You said something about the crucifixion of the Christ. We're not.
It's a lesson from the Course. The Christ in me cannot be crucified.
Yes, but what has to be done is to resurrect the Christ that is already within us. And that has been my personal work. And what I'm most excited about, the way I'm shifting, the way I'm going to be teaching going forward, because I teach what I'm learning.
Yes.
And for me, that being in the world but not of it is really the how do we resurrect the Christ that is within. And one of the things that was so fascinating for me as I began to pay attention to what Trump is doing, is saying, has been doing, the way that it came about for me is I was a big Bernie supporter in 2016. I followed that man because he was speaking. There were some things that he said that didn't jive with me, but he was speaking to the equality of humanity, to that we shouldn't have a 1% and a 99%, that nobody should be operating in poverty. All of those things were like, yes, that's what we do for our fellow man. But when and the other thing that I loved about him is he was attracting so many young people. And when I follow the young people, to me, the young people are the ones that are closest to the source. So wherever they tend to be going, if it has that purity, hasn't been tainted by dogma and conditioning, if I sense that purity, it's always about doing things that uplift everybody. So I was following Bernie, and when I saw that the DNC cheated him of his nomination, I went, wait a second, I cannot support this group. And at that time, I had no issues with Trump, none whatsoever. He's a brilliant business person, has done incredibly well, but I didn't feel called to support him. So I went looking for somebody who was most like Bernie Sanders, and I found that in Jill Stein with the Green Party. So I voted Green, all the while continuing to follow what Bernie was doing and paying attention to what Trump was doing. So the second time around, when Bernie was out there again, and of course Marianne Williamson got out there, who was saying a message that resonated with me completely. We have to look to see that we got to look at the corruption. We have to address the corruption. That's why we don't have what Bernie is talking about. If we didn't have corruption, what Bernie was teaching about was already done. It would already be implemented. And when Bernie again was cheated by the DNC, and I'm using terms of in the world, I'm talking about the illusion. I know I'm speaking about what has no power over us, but I'm speaking of it because it's what we are here to learn from, get our lessons and wake up from. I began to see, okay, this is a cheating that is happening. I'm not going to support that. Then I began to pay attention to Trump in a deeper way, to listen to his messages. And I've been looking at stuff down the rabbit hole for about 15, 16 years. Because when I started my journey, I went down the rabbit hole to understand how was the Catholic Church created. And that's when I began to see it was a business. It was all for the purpose of controlling people. From the get-go, Emperor Constantine created an organization to get his people under control, and all about money making. So the business and the politics of religion became totally clear for me. And from there, oh my God, I went on so many different areas to discover things. So when I began to pay attention to Trump and I began to listen to a little bit, some Q things, I was like, oh my gosh, these people are talking about all these other things that I had learned about, but they're actually doing something about it. That's when it became clear for me, I have to support this man. Yeah. That's when my community went haywire on me.
Yeah, well, thank you for going there, because I wanted to touch on this in our talk today. Wow, what a great circle back around to how we wanted somebody in that position that would attend to the corruption. And so we sought it in different places, but the corruption always seems to win. The egoic consciousness on this planet always seems to have such a stronghold. So it was very similar for me too. When I actually knew Trump was good in the 2016 election, when he said, in the debates with Hillary, and he said something about how she was corrupt and what happened in the WikiLeaks, and he was kind of going off, and I didn't know enough about that because I really had stepped out of politics, and I had worked in DC and in the state senates in Ohio and stuff, but so I had a political affinity and public service and all of that, but stepped out just because I knew I was going to be sick and miserable, and I just couldn't keep up with it. And then I dove into yoga, and then of course, and all of the coaching that came after. But the bottom line was that during that debate, he had said, he was kind of picking on her. And then she said something to the extent of, oh, it would be a very dangerous world for a man with Donald Trump's temperament to be in the White House. And he said back to her, yeah, because people like you would be in jail. And I went, what is he talking? Why would Hillary Clinton be in jail? She wants universal health care. Yeah, I didn't necessarily get the whole bill thing. It always creeped me out. She always creeped me out. But I was like trained to be, a liberal intellectualist. That's like, oh, a woman is finally going to be in the office. That's a good thing. Like thinking that's the only important thing, that she doesn't have specific body parts, that somehow that makes her, better than him because we need a woman in the White. There was all that energy, just like with Obama. We need a black man in the office, and we all got roped into the external of what these people look like. But because we were so obsessed with that, and we're so trained to be obsessed with the material world and the world of illusions, that we know innately something is not correct, but we ignore that. And that is what Christ within is teaching us. That's what the Course teaches us, is don't ignore that. That is the truth. You need to go inward. And so when that I said to,
that's the work.
That's the work. I said to one of my family members that I really love, I go, I kind of think that Trump is onto something. I don't know. It's alarming for me because I know, I'm one of these, new age feminists. I need to be behind Hillary, and, and she forgave her husband. It's just all the craziness. But the bottom line is that, the bottom line is that Trump, the issue we have with him is that we're so accustomed, I've said this in a few other interviews, but I'm going to say it again because I really want to hit this point home, that we are more familiar with toxic masculine energy than to actually believe that we could have a patriarchal figure that is on the right side of things. It is so inconceivable to our egos, which are dominating our realities. We just can't even believe it. And that's why willingness comes in, because if you can accept the fact, even for 10 minutes, that he might be on the right side of things, the level of information and executive orders, the way that you listen to speeches will be different. You will tune into the codes. You will be able to hear the codes. You will know what fracking means. You will know what the wall represents. You will just get your brain so cleared out of all the garbage that has been placed in there that it will only make sense for anyone who has a heart, Christ, to go, thank you. That's it. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. It must not be an easy gig. I have no idea what all the other stuff means that I don't get, but I can see through the illusions. I can see what you're up to, and you have my utmost support. And anyone that comes against that, seriously, guys, fine, but please stay out of my way, because we are trying to anchor in heaven on earth here, and it's no joke. And it's warfare right now. And, my coach and mentor was a master in the Course in Miracles, 40 years with the material. And she would always say, we don't fight, there's no need to be fighting and war and all of that. And I hear that, but where we are right now, it's not about fighting, but it is about deflection. And it is about anchoring in. So the communities and people and all the things they want to say about how Biden is going to save the planet and all this craziness, you're allowed. You're allowed. But here's my bottom line. Are you at peace with that narrative? Does it bring you comfort in the middle of the night when you're awoken? in anxiety and fear for your children and your finances and your partnership and your home and all the stuff. Because for me, aligning to this information and some of the Q stuff, and, it has brought me such an inner standing that we're actually going to manifest heaven on earth. And I can say this with 100% certainty because I am living it. I'm living it. I'm seeing it. I mean, my children don't go to school. They go to a program where they're self-directed and they get to choose the curriculum. They get to choose when they want to read. They get to choose what they're interested in. Like, that's already happening. I'm free. I can go to the beach right now if I want to. I'm looking at palm trees and hummingbirds. This is what I want for everyone. And this is the yogic prayer, that all beings everywhere are happy and free. So if you're a yogi or you're into A Course in Miracles and you're into all of these things and you're resisting this, that is okay. But it's your resistance you need to work with. It's not Lana's fault. It's not my fault. That's yours. It's not President Trump's fault. It's not the Q insanity. It's not all that. It's your interpretation and your judgment and your fear. And people like you and me, we're here to support you. That's it. I have no other intention but to be of service. And I want to support you. And that's why I came out of the closet, because I was like, my community is avoiding this.
Yeah. For a good reason, for a really good reason, because the only way to really, and what you said, which is so powerful and so beautiful, and that understanding that we have to come inside and really get what's going on. But when I started supporting Trump, and it was really more this year, really verbally, even though when I voted for Jill Stein, I wanted Trump to win. I was very clear for pretty much what you were saying. He is going to clean the swamp. And then, of course, I saw how all the roadblocks that he received, and I knew, okay, there's this plan, this corruption is in motion here. But the reason people can't see this is the same reason why I couldn't see it before. And that is the incredible power of projections. Because whenever I see somebody who is judging Trump and hating Trump, if they happen to be somebody that I can have a conversation with, and they are questioning me, how could I support this bigot, this misogynist, blah, 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 the long list of attributes that they have been conditioned to believe about Trump. When I asked them, I said, but are you happy with Biden? Do you love Biden? Are you at peace with Biden? Because if you're at peace with Biden, go for that. That is absolutely what you should do. But if you are choosing Biden because you're hating Trump, you are projecting your unresolved guilt, shame, all of those things that you judge about him. You're projecting them on him so that he can be the carrier of the guilt that you don't want to look at is inside of you. Now, in my classes, it's a whole different story with my students. And now, yes, we lost quite a few this year when I would have them look at the projection part of it. But those who looked at their projection about Trump, their projection about, COVID and the fear, did such incredible growth and healing within themselves because they saw the thing that the Course teaches, two things that are so important. Everything that is unlike love comes from the past. So first of all, if you're judging anybody, you are talking with conditioning. That's not the presence of who you are. It's the past conditioning that you've got recorded in your mind and you're projecting it out. The other thing that the Course is so clear about is that everything is an opportunity. Everything is a lesson God would have me learn for one reason and one reason only, to discover our power. Because if we're blaming somebody else, we are literally saying, you have the power over me. And this hate of anybody is a transference of power. So not only are you operating with misinformation from the past, you are in this present moment willingly, through blame, sending your power away. You can't harness that power if you're in blame, because you're operating from a victim mentality. So of course you're going to go into protection. And that is the thing that I really want to focus in the being in the world, but not of it, is to help people who are ready to claim their power. Because when we make a decision like I did, I and the Father are one, I'm going to own this. If Jesus can wake up, so can I. If he can resurrect the Christ within, so can I. It began to change my life. But of course, I had to look at everything that was unlike that. So the projections and looking at my my past conditioning, that requires an incredible amount, not only of honesty, but you've got to be willing above everything else to be wrong about all of the things that make you suffer. If it makes you uncomfortable to hate him, then why hate him? If the only thing that makes you comfortable with anybody is to accept them, why continue to hate somebody that makes you feel bad? You're doing it to you. Nobody's making you feel anything. So many things that people need to understand, because it is so easy to project out there. And one of the things nobody wants to hear that is so upset with Trump is that all of this hate that they have for him doesn't come from their heart. It's not possible. They don't have it. It is totally, completely programmed in their mind, and it can be wiped clean with a little willingness to question it.
Beautiful. Excellent. Excellent download. I mean, straight up, it's not yours.
I feel like, that way too.
You know, like it's beautiful. It really is that simple. It seems very difficult. That's what I love about the course too. It's like so nonchalant. It's like, guys, this is actually quite easy, but your ego is going to be like, oh my God, this is so hard. Why? Because it's attached to its own survival. And the spiritual journey is about literally purifying yourself from your egoic consciousness and aligning yourself to your loving consciousness. So anything that we receive, as the course teaches us, is either love or a call for love. And so hate is a call for love. That's all. It's so wherever you're placing it is yours to alchemize, to transmute, to surrender to the Holy Spirit. Can you help me see this from another perspective? That's what we're up to. And you know, I knew, coming back to Marianne, because I want to make sure that we get to her, that I knew that I was not aligned to her anymore when I started to see her hate speech towards Donald Trump. That was for me very alarming.
Me too.
And I was like, well, okay, we can disagree with him. Like maybe he is, you know, nurturing the 1%. And I was super enrolled in her campaign. I went to see her at the debates. Like I met her. I was like, go Marianne. I was posting like crazy for Marianne all over the place. But when that happened, and my whole community was okay with that. My community thought that was totally fine. Like, oh, well, look at Marie. She's politically supporting it and da-da-da, all this stuff. No one said anything to me about that. Then I saw all of this stuff and I met her in July. And by August, I started to see all of it. You know, the monster in chief and just the pure hatred and all of this intellectual stuff turned against him. And it just was like, eeks. And then the bottom line for me was that when she put QAnon is a dark psychic force, when she wrote that, the next day, no, that was a Saturday. On Monday, I do a Miraculous Monday talk, which I'm supposed to do in 10 minutes, but whatever. I'm doing it right now with you. I said to my community, guys, listen, I feel it's very important for me to be fully open and let everyone know that as much as I love Marianne's work on A Course in Miracles and all of the lectures and my level of gratitude for her, for really steering the way and getting this material out there. Return to Love is a beautiful book. Nothing can change that. I love that material. Do I listen to it anymore? No. Do I subscribe to it anymore? No. However, I'm grateful for it and I don't have any hard feelings. However, I'm no longer aligned politically to what she's saying, because what I felt like I got plugged into was the dark psychic force, which was using spiritual teachers to get us heart-centered folks who wanted a world of peace, who could see that, yes, we needed to do A, B, and C on a high level to put in correction where all of this corruption has, you know, wreaked havoc. But then it turned us to, it wasn't for Marianne to be president. It was to get him out. Why? Because he's taking down the systems and the corruption that all of these people have been benefiting from.
Yes.
Those are the facts. It's very difficult to accept that. But that's why I felt like I needed to say something. And some of my community caught on to it. People came at me with such vengeance, though. that I could have the audacity to go up against Marianne Williamson.
Me too.
Which was like, I'm not going up against her. I'm just saying I'm not politically aligned. I don't like the vibration. And I've been studying the course long too. I've done my work with this. Like, nobody owns the course. Someone said to me, oh, Marianne wrote that book. I said, no, she didn't. Christ wrote that book. You cannot, no here. And when my book is being written right now, did I write that book? No, I didn't write that book. No, I did not write that book. It's coming through me. That's what this is about. It's getting so cleared of your own sense of self that you are in the unity. I am my Father are one. So I am just here to communicate what comes through me. Yes, with my own personality and all that stuff that has to do with this dimension. But bottom line, it's not us. And Marianne that was not correct, if you ask me. And it's not a judgment. It's just not correct, straight up.
You know, it's an acceptance that she got you to 4th grade on your journey, but she can't take you to 5th grade or whatever it is. That's all it is. There's a lot of teachers that took me to levels that they took me. Nobody can teach you beyond where they are at. And every single one of us is wherever we are on the spiral, and it is a spiral that expands. So nobody can go beyond that. Or beyond where they are. And so I know my limitations in my teachings, and that's why I seek other teachers. And when I feel the resonance, I know they're stretching me. Absolutely, I definitely want to go there. But I had, which was just an honor, that I was invited to a very small event with Marianne here in Atlanta, Georgia. They invited ministers, and being a teacher of A Course in Miracles in a spiritual community, I was invited as a teacher of the course to that, and heard her, and it was wonderful. And she was still in the race at that time, and I was raising money for her. I was posting like you. Yeah. Totally, because what she was saying is what the course says. We have to see what's behind the curtain. The ego's behind the curtain. The ego is the curtain. So of course you've got to peer behind the curtain. So that was wonderful. I was part of that little group. Then when she left the race, she formed another group to get new thought and spiritual people to come together and align and joining forces. And when we had our first Zoom meeting, it was sometime, I guess it was maybe July, or I can't remember when it was, COVID time for sure, this summer. And I was invited to participate in that. And she basically was asking everybody, well, tell us, what is it that you feel is accurate for you? Because we have to come together. We've got to look at things differently. And she was right. Our republic is at stake. So everybody, of course, says whatever they say. And when I got to the side of, well, I want to let you know that I am actually, I am looking at Trump, and I am supporting Trump. And she basically went off about the anybody who thinks that they know what's going on behind the scenes. We know what's going on behind the scenes, and this QAnon stuff and blah, blah. And I immediately, it was like, okay, I am no longer associating with this, because number one, it is like you were saying, it is not loving to go judging. If you want to stand for what it is that you believe about Biden, stand for that. Tell us what is going to be better in the world because of Biden. And then just do that. That would be the loving, awake thing to do. Right. But if we're going to be judging somebody else, let's not use the Course in Miracles as a platform to justify judgment, when the Course in Miracles is here to eradicate judgment, because it's the only thing that separates us. And that's when I was like, I cannot follow that anymore. She served me, but now it's time for different teachers. And that was my experience with her. But it's made me even more aware of the division that is happening within the spiritual world, because now teachers are taking sides. And that, I'll tell you what, you will probably be the best person for me to talk to about this. And I know you've got to go, so let me know when you want to complete. But we're going to have quite a few more conversations, where the thing, Marie, that I began to realize when I was going through my son's drug adventure, and I happened to be remarried. I remarried the same summer Spencer started drugs, and I got divorced the same summer Spencer quit doing drugs. So for 4 years, I was stuck between my child and this other man that I had fallen in love with, who couldn't handle what was going on with my child, and a lot of his stuff came up. That's when I began to see, oh my gosh, I'm judging him for what he's doing. With all this spiritual knowledge, I'm using all of these beautiful spiritual truths, and I'm judging this man for judging me for how I'm dealing with my son. And I realized I have got a spiritualized ego, and I've got to undo that. Just because I know spirituality, who am I to beat somebody over the head with spiritual truths? You're not being, spiritual enough. You're not being Christ enough. What the hell? I saw myself doing that, and I realized I've got to undo this spiritualized ego. And that part of when I was listening to you, I'm like, she understands the ego mind. Nobody gets out of this illusion until you step out of the ego mind. And you can't step out of the ego mind if you're defending spirituality and using it to beat somebody else up over the head with it. It's no different than religion. It's what religion did. But spirituality, it's fluffier and nicer. Maybe we're not crucifying people with at the stake and justifying it, but we sure are in our own minds. And that's just as much attempting to kill another being, because we are in the mind of God, and it's all consciousness, and every thought is created. So,
and thoughts don't leave their source.
Bingo.
So if we're harboring these thoughts, we are resonating on those frequencies. And so that's part of what is triggering, I think, us to embody higher and higher levels, when we can see it in our spiritual teachers or in our mentors or in our parents and the people that we love. We love and respect them. But like in that conversation, had she have said, I hear you, and I'm interested to hear how you've come to that conclusion, from a place of equanimity, she would still have your respect and your support, even if she was on the other side of it. And that's what we're trying to say here. And that's what I believe I am demanding now from my community. Otherwise, I don't want to, again, like, okay, fine, that was a good move. You should leave now, because this is the level I want to play at. And the spiritual ego, my goodness, is it dressed up and projecting when it's like, I was really surprised that my community, didn't call me up. If they really think that Trump and Q and are all of the things that they think it is, then wouldn't you deduce that they would be worried for my sanity and they would call with a loving intention?
That would be the loving thing to do.
Like, come on, like, wouldn't you think like they'd be like, oh my gosh, Maria, are you okay? Like, I've been hearing all of this craziness. Can you please share with me where you're coming from? And like, let's do the heart-centered stuff that we've been doing for all of these years. But no, everybody felt justified. And again, this is why programming and going deeper and deeper into the course and looking at the facts, I think has really also supported me. Like, okay, here are the facts. I want to acknowledge how far I've come. Not like boosting my ego, but acknowledging, sister, you showed up when it was difficult. How would Christ talk to me right now? Christ has never, in the last 4-6 weeks since I've come out, said to me, I made a mistake. He's not. He said, you're a holy son of God. You're doing beautifully. He's held me. I actually saw him holding me, like literally, because I was like, cracked out really, especially in the beginning of this, very much like it was such a psychic hit of, my entire, and I went, oh my God, have I made a mistake or anything? And he just held me. You did what we asked you to do.
Yeah. Same here. I have had only loving reinforcement. This brother of ours that walks with us on this path to walk us back home. Amen. What Christ has said to me, and this is where I hope that you and I, will collaborate in doing some things. But what I was shown is that for me, I've got to associate with teachers of the course who are operating at a level, at a frequency that is allowing for the questioning of everything. If you're not willing to look at everything, peer behind the curtain of Trump and of Biden, then that's not the people who I'm going to be here to serve. But if you're willing to look at everything, everything will be used for your liberation. And it is about coming in with a desire to free yourself, not condemn somebody else, because that is who I am here to now teach, because that's what I'm doing for me. So yeah, I'm not here to teach everybody. I'm only here to serve those who want to use love to free themselves, because there is no other way out of jail. There's no other way out of the ego made up illusion of suffering. But until there is that awareness that only love gets you out, there's not going to be the willingness to really question your spiritualized ego, because oh my gosh, it's what this journey is all about. Yeah. And
beautiful.
I am just so grateful. I am like so grateful to be in your presence and have this conversation with you.
Me too. I have to say, it's been so much fun. I want to say one more thing before we complete.
Please.
Riffing off what you just said about who I'm here to teach. And, you know, we're here to teach only love. That's what the Course teaches us. And the Course also says to us that we each have our own ministry, including the people that are coming to your workshops and classes and trainings, including the people that are coming to mine. We have a ministry. And I think one of the things that I'm learning on a whole other level in terms of the continuing to break down my own ego is to be detached from the who and the when and the how. It really is an embodiment of waking up every day and going, you know the prayer, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? And that level, like that's what I want more than anything. And so that's what's starting to happen. That's what I'm starting to manifest. I don't always nail it. But I can say that more frequently and with a higher level of frequency and love and joy and peace and gentleness and all the things that we've been like rah, shish kumbaying all these years. It's like, it works. Like it's actually starting to work in a level that I'm so humbled by. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And one of my intentions, and I, if I can say, I think also for you is that I want to be of service. I want to support you in accelerating through some, like what took me 15 years, maybe will only take you 15 minutes. That is possible, because one of the Course lessons that I love so much is not the lessons, but the themes and the principles is about the holy instant. You know, that it need not take us, you know, another 2,000 years to correct this. It could happen in an instant. It could. And it most frequently does, at least for me, is like when I see myself veering off into that, it's, oh, back. Oh, I know that. Okay, back. And the more frequently you do it, the easier it is, the more natural it becomes. And that's what this is about for all of us. All of us deserve this level of comfort and clarity and knowing that we're held by our Creator and that our Creator wants us home sooner than later, in the now, right here, right now. I have these moments where I look over at my family, or I look here and I look there. I'm looking at the screen right now at you and I'm going, who planned this?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is just so beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And the entire theme for me of being in the world but not of it can only happen if we make a decision to fall in love with God within. That's it. That's it. And that is what brings us into that holy instant, is that return to love, that return to God within. So no, my teachings where I am today will not serve anybody who is looking to blame or shame, because that's not the conversation.
It's getting through that conversation. It's getting beyond that. It's learning how to step into your Christed nature and the Christ.
How to be the light of the world. That's it. How to be the light of the world. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for our next conversation. It's going to be so much fun.
So much fun to be with you. Thank you for this. And thank you for reaching out. It really warms my heart to see so many of us coming together. It's just the beginning of really, our work now is taking on a whole other level. And I feel ready. I feel purified. I feel grateful that I've been chosen for this mission and that I'm uniting now. And we're going to hold each other up. It's beautiful.
Me too. Thank you, sister.
Thank you, sister. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye for now.